I'm so excited for this conversation because I know it's going to be a good one. So Tolu is going to join, but while we are waiting, we can get started with the interview. And I can introduce myself. My name is Adeola Adeniyi. I am one of the Naija Comm hosts, and in addition to that, I am the host of It's Just Adeola, the show, and I'm also a creative director. But we are not here to talk about me. We are here to talk about you amazing individuals and the work that you did on this amazing animated series, Iwájú. So for those who are tuned in and don't know, would you be able to introduce yourselves?
Okay.
Okay.
Let me go. Hi
Okay.
guys. My name is Godwin. I'm sorry if the network is breaking me, but I'll just go ahead. So hi guys, my name is Godwin Akpan. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria, and I happen to work on the Disney animation show Iwájú alongside Kugali Media, and I was opportunity to be working in the role of a visual development artist. So my role on the project was pretty much designing some of the environments that you saw in the show. And because I've lived in Lagos all my life, I was pretty able to, include some of the, subtle nuances and things that, were very authentic to the Lagos culture into those environment design. So I'm happy to share with you guys today, ask questions and talk about, my contributions on that show. I'll give it to Adebimpe.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Adebimpe Adebambo, and I'm a visual artist. I specialize in painting in art school, and I've worked across several creative industries. So for the sake of Iwájú, I was blessed and lucky to have two roles. So I worked in visual development as the costume designer, and I also I assisted Tolu as a cultural consultant. So the looks in the show, the fashion, even down to the hairstyling and all, it was in conjunction and following the direction of Hamid Ibrahim, our production designer, and of course running it by the script writer and director, Fikayo, and of course, Tolu Olowofoyeku, the cultural consultant. So it was an amazing experience. And like Godwin, well, I've not lived in Lagos all my life but I've lived in Lagos for the past 30 years. So, and I'm also a Yoruba woman, as my name implies. So I know quite a bit about the culture, as it were. So yes. Okay.
Amazing.
Hi, Tolu.
And Tolu was able to join. Hi, Tolu.
Hi everyone.
How are you?
Sorry, I've
Coming
had
from basketball.
a crazy last 2 weeks. No, it's not basketball. I wouldn't. It was more something more urgent than that. But I am here now, so
Amazing. And no
go ahead.
worries. We're just getting started and we're doing introductions. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the audience members.
All right. Oh boy. Hi, my name is Tolu Olowofoyeku. I'm one of the co-founders of Kugali, and I'm a storyteller, a Christian, a geek, and a tea bag. For Iwájú, I was the cultural consultant.
Amazing. Well, I want to first off start by saying Iwájú was amazing. Like that was something that we needed for the culture, and to be able to see that representation done through its first ever animation series was something as a Nigerian I just felt honored to be able to see on screen. Growing up, you always want to be able to see people who represent you on this TV screen, and for you all to have been able to contribute to that is so amazing. And I want to start off my first question by asking, and Tolu, this could be for you, what was the process and thinking behind Iwájú, and why now to share the story?
Oh my. Okay. So I'll start with why now. I think things just came together at the right timing for us because it's not like it's not like we chose the timing. We didn't. We didn't reach out to Disney Animation. They reached out to us. So So I think a lot of things just came together perfectly, and it wasn't something we could plan or control. Now, if about the storytelling process or the formative process, when Disney Animation discovered us, we had already been publishing comics for I think almost 2 years at the time. And we published comics from all across the continent. Kugali is Pan-African. So we already had comics from Ghana, Zimbabwe, Nigeria at that time, among others. And Disney Animation asked us to pitch stories to them. So we pitched 3 different stories. And not all of them were set in Nigeria. Not all of them were set in real places. One of our stories was set in a fantasy world, and the main characters were like talking animals, like, crocodile and whatnot. So it's not like we said this is exactly the one story we are going to tell. And it just happens that after we pitched the 3 stories, they picked the one that was set in Lagos, Nigeria. So that's a quick summary of how it went down.
That's amazing. And I love that you said that you didn't go out to Disney. Disney reached out to you. This is for everyone. What was the relationship like between Disney and Kugali? How did Disney make sure that not only did Iwájú have support, but Iwájú had a home? Support is more than just giving you a platform. Support goes into investing and making sure that people are able to find the show. So whether that be through the animation, through the visual storytelling, what was Disney's support with that?
Okay, so I would say from the get-go, Jennifer Lee, who is Chief Creative Officer at Disney Animation, I should point out, because I know many, let me say, people who are not in the industry don't separate Disney, the company, from Disney Animation in their head. So let me point out, Disney is a company, a parent company. They own Disney Animation, they own Disney TV, TVA, which are the guys who do those, like the animations you see on Disney Junior. That's a different studio from the guys that do the movies like Moana. So we worked with Disney Animation. They're the guys that do movies like Moana, Aladdin, Lion King. And that's different from Pixar, so they're all different companies, right? Well, I'm talking about Disney Animation. From now on, if I say Disney, we're talking about Disney Animation. So Disney Animation, the chief creative officer is Jennifer Lee. She wrote and directed Frozen and Frozen 2. And the thing is, she is the first female director that Disney Animation has had. And Disney Animation is 101 years old this year as a studio. So it made her feel like, okay, there need to be more voices working in telling these stories. So her personal goal, now this is not a Disney goal per se, but more so as it is a personal goal for Jennifer Lee, it's to tell the stories of the world by the people of the world. But when she took that to Bob Iger, who hired her, he gave her the go ahead, like, do what you want to do, you got this. So that's why she was able to do things like reach out to us and propose something that Disney Animation has never done in 100 years, which is collaborate with an external studio. So yeah, I would say that just led to bringing on people like Bimpe and Godwin onto the project, because they bring expertise that Disney Animation does not have, and we at Kugali might not have some of that expertise. So, for example, I was the cultural consultant on the project, but she was my, let me say, assistant cultural consultant, because I'm not fluent in Yoruba. I need to consult her to get some things right. And she's a fashion designer. I'm not. So for the clothing, she was also the costume designer. And she needed to tell us what made sense for the characters to wear and things like that.
Wow. But we can actually go to you talking about the clothing, right? Most people wouldn't understand why an animated series needs a clothing designer. But when you watch the show, you really see the intention and the fabric and the detail in the clothes the characters wear. So can you walk us through the process and the intention of the clothing that we saw Tola wear and Kole and even Bode? Like, everyone's clothing was so intentional. What was the process like?
Okay, so the great thing about the project was the fact that we had a production designer, Hamid, who knew exactly, that's the work of a production designer anyway, but he knew exactly the look and feel he wanted to go for. Hamid is Ugandan. He's the only non-Nigerian out of the three co-founders, you know, but he knew exactly what he wanted, the look to have, the show to have a certain look and feel. And when I had the first meeting with him, he told me that for the 100% clothing in the show, he wants a certain percentage fully Nigerian, another percentage fully Western, and another percentage a hybrid. Now, even though I was given leeway to dress, accessorize, and come up with the looks of the characters, he already had what he wanted Bode to look like, because he had done a preliminary sketch. He wanted Bode to always be in an agbada because of his ostentatious nature. Because who wears a complete set, that is the inner tunic, trousers, and the outer one that is quite big, everywhere in the streets? You know, who has all them jewelry, everything, you know, is Bode. So based on a character he had already like designed an idea of a particular outfit, I worked with several character development artists, you know, like on the project for different characters. That was also a beautiful experience, because I was able to work with, because the project is the first time collaboration, as Tolu said, that Disney Animation Studios is having with an external person. So it was like a dream come true, even though we were seeing one another in small squares, to work with Disney Animation character development artists, then to also work with the Kugali team on the project, because different artists were working on different characters. So because of the guideline Hamid gave me, I was able to make suggestions after also reading the script over and over and over again, and the character, you know, like descriptions. I was able to come up with ideas for looks based on that. So my girl Happiness, like, she's my favorite character. So my girl Happiness, I told the three co-founders, because, you know, the amazing thing about it was that there were always meetings with different people, meetings with the co-founders, meetings with the Kugali team, meeting with the Disney people, meeting with everybody. So I made a case for Happiness having an afro. An afro is so powerful. So I said she had to have an afro. Like, she has to stand out. She can't be forgettable. And okay, Hamid wanted her a certain character type, so she was going to be svelte, you know, shapely and all that. But her tribe, she's also Hausa. So I also made a case for her having henna designs. If you watch closely, you'll see that she has henna. And the interesting thing, there are little cultural nuances that the uninitiated may not notice, because when she gets into when she activates her exo arm, the henna becomes raised, like it's raised on the skin. You can watch again, it's raised on the skin, and that was like an ode to scarification in some African and even Nigerian cultures. So, you know, normally it's surfaced, but when she, I mean, which is only in one episode, if you look very closely, you see it's not flat. So so I had that with Happiness. And then with my girl Tola, the scenes that had to do with her going to the mainland, I knew she had to look cute, but it wasn't a place for a dress. So I suggested that she be in a jumpsuit, whatever I call it, onesie, whatever, so that she can, is a rough and tumble, she can run, you know, and all. And then I also suggested that since it's going to be a jumpsuit, it should be the indigo fabric, which is so particular to Nigeria. If you Google indigo fabric, Nigeria will come up because indigo is produced in 3 main places in Nigeria, in Osogbo, in Abeokuta, and in Kano, the Kofamata dye pits. So that when you see that, if you know about textiles, about art, I mean, many people that don't necessarily know about textile or art, they know, okay, it's a dire, or maybe they think it's a print. But many artists, many textile designers, when they saw it, they were like, oh, she's wearing indigo. So I really am happy that I got that, because it is also the outfit she's in all the posters. So you won't miss it. So that was I was given like leeway to work on the character, but always bouncing it back the main people, the co-founders, and in several meetings. So I think that's it in some form of summary.
I love that. And you can just hear the amount of intention that went behind the show through this conversation. I think, I watched the documentary for the making of Iwájú, and I saw, even casting was done by people of the culture. Even the studio, fun fact, ACI Studios, I know that's where you recorded, is actually my dad's studio in Nigeria. And so to see that is like so amazing, because I know the intention, right? Like, this is what it means to work with your people, because it translates the culture, the communication, the identity. It translates from the paper when you write it to the screen when we're seeing it. And so I appreciate that, because it doesn't go unnoticed. Something I really wanted to bring up was Afrofuturism and the role it played in Iwájú. Africa's portrayal typically in media can be done stereotypically and in a negative way. But, Afrofuturism and including that in the story was so important in like the daily lives of the characters. What made you all see Afrofuturism as a huge opportunity to incorporate in Iwájú, whether that be, again, through the animation, through the storytelling, through the clothing?
Tolu, Tolu is loading.
It seems like he went up. Can you hear us?
Tolu, can you hear us?
I think
He just dropped.
He's gone off. Okay,
yeah.
so with respect to Afrofuturism, which is a word that Kugali doesn't really use as such, I think
Sorry, I lost access to my mic icon, so I had to leave and drop back.
Okay, so you're back. So
yeah.
a
All right, let me answer
you.
that.
Yeah.
I heard the question. So I'll just talk about Afrofuturism for a minute. And I'll start with giving an analogy, because this analogy always helps me explain my answer. Do you know what a HBCU is?
I actually went to one. I went to Howard.
Okay, so now I'm going to explain this because I'm imagining a lot of the audience might be people who live in Nigeria and grew up in Nigeria and don't know what a HBCU is. Because I didn't know what a HBCU was until during the pandemic, because I was stranded in the US during the pandemic. So I was living with my uncle and my cousin who are American, and then I started learning about certain American things. So HBCU stands for Historically Black College and University. And the thing is, in the US, because of the institutionalized racism that has been a part of US history generally, there was a need for the people to specifically say, hey, this university accepts Black people, come and study, because some universities would not accept you if you were Black in those days. So that led to the creation of HBCUs. Now, as a Nigerian who schooled in Nigeria, I grew up here, I went to university here. I never needed to know what a HBCU was, because there was no school that would be like, oh, you're Black or you're Nigerian, you can't join. All the schools in Nigeria would accept me if I got a high enough score. So nobody in Nigeria refers to their university as a HBCU, even though most of the people in the university are Black. So that same way, I do not consider Kugali's work to be Afrofuturism. because we are African, we are based in Africa. We are not dealing with the same issues that Black people in the Western world are dealing with. And we cannot claim the things they created to cope with what they were struggling with. We cannot claim those titles and labels for ourselves. So in the same way that I did not have to look for a HBCU before I could get into university in Nigeria. I just went to the school that accepted me when I applied. And in that same way, when I started Kugali, when we started making our comics, when we started our podcast, we had never heard of Afrofuturism. We didn't know what it was. What we had heard of was science fiction and fantasy and things like that. So we created a science fiction story. And we don't refer to, if you check, you're never going to find any official marketing from Kugali or Disney that labels it Afrofuturism. Every single time you see that word, it is the media saying it. You will never see it coming from Kugali or Disney. So it's not Afrofuturism. That being said, it's just like how Black Americans basically started things like hip hop. They popularized things like jazz. Then you see a lot of their influence in African music. Before certain genres of African music found their own identity, they were basically just copying what they were getting from Black Americans. And I think that is very normal in art. Most artists, you can ask Godwin. I'm pretty sure Godwin's the first couple of sketches he did, he was copying an established artist's style. I don't know who it was for you. For me, I used to draw like Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball. But eventually, you find your own style. So I know that when many African visual storytellers started, they were actually inspired by Afrofuturism. That is a fact. But for me, that wasn't the case for me and my co-founders at Kugali. We had never heard of it. We didn't know what it was. However, when we look at what we've done today, we realize that because so many people identify with different parts of what we do, many people give it a label that makes sense to them. So I would say, I'll just round up this point by saying that I feel privileged that I just did what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make games, make comics, make animation. That was all. There was no cultural agenda or anything. I just did what I wanted to do. But I've come to realize that my work means so much to so many different groups of people. It means a lot to Nigerians. But I've seen how the African community outside of Nigeria embraces Iwájú and how they love it as one of theirs because it's still African, even if it's not Ugandan or Kenyan. Hamid himself is not Nigerian and he was production designer on this show. And in the same way, I've seen that Black people in the diaspora then embrace it as Afrofuturism or a representation of Black people in the kind of stories they want to see themselves in.
Thank you so much for even giving us that perspective and that insight on what that means to you. Because I think sometimes we come from, like you said, backgrounds of what we already know. And so having that clarification and that understanding really helps us understand, like, okay, this is what Iwájú means to the Kugali Media and the company. So thank you for that. Godwin, I want to come to you. You know, you worked on the animation. The animation was amazing, from the hair to the facial features to all the cool technology that we saw and the way it just like burst on the screen. It was so cool, and just to again see Nigerian representation on the screen like that was so amazing. Can you talk to us just about that process? What was it like to work with on the animation team and creating those characters?
Oh, okay. All right. First, I'm gonna just go ahead and say the guys who did the animation were phenomenal. They did fantastic, right? And I was privileged to work as a visual development artist, which is a process that comes before animation. So what that means is before the animators and the actual key people who are going to, define what the show would look like, right, on TV, we had to kind of set the stage, right? We kind of had to design all of that look before it goes into actual production. So personally for me, it was really an exciting time for me because it really gave me the opportunity to explore and expand on what I already knew how to do. So if you're an artist like me, you would really enjoy just going online, looking at pictures, finding things that interest you, right? To kind of be inspired by. And most projects I work on, there's barely anything that connects me to the project, right? It's mainly somebody's idea, and I just have to find references online to interpret them. But in the case of in the case of Iwájú, it was really cool to see that I could reference the things around me to define what the look of the show is. And it was a great collaborative process with Hamid Ibrahim, who's the production designer, as well as some other artists like Shegun Samson, John Zido, who are also Nigerians. Those guys, we grew up together basically, right? So we kind of have, almost the same kind of flair in terms of design. So looking at our environment, I'm finding shape designs, color inspirations, pattern ideas that could inform some of the choices that we made in the final product. It was really great to see. For instance, I was privileged to design the actual mansion that Tunde lives in, right? And there are so many houses that you could have drawn inspiration from. But guess where my inspiration came from? I was looking at the Yoruba traditional hats called fila. Abeti Aja, there's a particular hat that has this wing shape. And every time I looked at that design, I'm always inspired, like, wow, this is such a cool shape. It would be so great to, come up with a spaceship idea from, this shape. And because Tunde is a very techie guy, and I imagine is also very creative, right? So he would be able to, kind of stay out of the regular, stereotypical, very boxy architecture language that we see today. The Tunde's mansion is nothing you've ever seen, right? The design, the shape doesn't exist anywhere because it was solely inspired by that hat design. And we needed to add some tech aspects and, some functionality to it. So I took pictures of things around me, right? I walked on the street. I'm constantly like taking pictures of, areas that I felt similar to, the world of Iwájú in a way. So it was really great to see how all of those ideas that surrounded me came together to kind of be like the basis for designing the world around Iwájú. Jesus Christ. I keep mixing those two names.
We understand.
The names are so similar.
Has to work on so many cool projects. Like sometimes the names just
I
mix
have to
up.
constantly remind myself that no, this is what I'm talking about. So I apologize for that.
Good.
But
When I grow up,
there were so many gems that came from just living in Lagos, exploring the cities of Lagos. And if you watch the show, you would see that there was like a class divide between two sets of people. You have the mainland people, you have the island people. And even in reality, it is like that because there's that constant divide that separates these two people, whereby the people who stay on the mainland are considered, maybe lower in means and not able to afford, the most expensive things in life. Whereas the people who stay on the island are more affluent, they occupy the most beautiful estates, the environment is very opulent. So the shape designs we use there, kind of conveyed that idea as well, right? We needed to explore the idea that, because these people have money, right? What would they worry more about? How to spend that money, which is building really fantastical structures, right? A lot of the architecture on the island were kind of mirrored from African statues. If you saw some of the structures, they look and resembled actual statues. And this was deliberate because it needed to feel like these people wanted to showcase their wealth. Whereas on the mainland, it was more like functional, right? We need to just create spaces for people to inhabit. And, you have to control population in a way and be able to make life easily affordable and accessible to these people. So they built more towering structures, which would, inhabit a lot more people as it goes higher up. And then there was even a cool idea that we added to that is, so at the ground level, you kind of have this ecosystem where it's pretty much the regular folks, your simple everyday life people who are barely surviving. And as you go higher on that tower structure, you kind of start to see a class divide. So people who are richer kind of stay on top, which is kind of symbolic for the rich kind of trampling on the poor in a way. So those kind of subtle aspects were kind of integrated into some of the look development of the show. And it was so fun to see that everything came together in a very wonderful way. So I'm happy that you guys are getting to see some of this process.
And it did. And
Yeah.
again, that
So
just
if
goes
you guys
to.
rewatch it, sorry, I
Go
just
ahead.
want to add to what
Go ahead.
Godwin said. If you guys watch it after listening to what Godwin said, you would see like when Kole goes to visit Bode, Kole has to go up the tower because Bode isn't living at the bottom of the tower. And you would see the shape of Tunde's mansion. You would notice the fila shape if you look at it again. Also, Greenwood Tech, that building, we shaped it to look like a talking drum. So if you watch it again, look at the Greenwood Tech building. So there were a lot of those things. Godwin designed so many of the buildings, and I don't know. You need to actually watch him draw. It's amazing. I can draw, but I'm nowhere near Godwin's level.
I bet I would have loved to see what the sketches looked like before we could saw it on the screen. But again, that just goes into the fact that you never know what's around you that can inspire your next project, right? Who would have thought that the things that we grew up with, just seeing the hat or a talking drum, could become the building of character that we see on the screen? Like those kind of things, those underlying messages, like you said. If you have watched the show already, or if you haven't watched the show already, go watch it after this conversation and have this conversation in mind while looking at those subtle details, because it's those details that makes the show even more amazing than what I thought. But Godwin, you brought up a very interesting point about the class divide that exists between the islanders and the mainlanders, right? Why we saw this stem from Bode's character arc, right? This was kind of his resentment and the reason behind his kidnapping and money and greed. Why feature this concept? Like, why feature this as a topic in the story?
Okay, so
I would let Tolu go for that. Mhm.
I'll speak for Ziki, my co-founder. So he wrote the script, and it's the thing is, as a writer, he always has different ideas bouncing around in his head. So when we got the opportunity to pitch to Disney Animation, he took some of those ideas and merged them into one story. So one of those ideas was the fact that in many dystopian science fiction stories, if you think of something like Elysium, I believe it's Elysium where the regular people live on the planet and the richest people live on an artificial moon called Elysium that floats above the planet. There's usually that divide in science fiction stories. If you look at Arcane, there are the topsiders and the undercity. But in real life Lagos, there's literally a physical island and mainland. We didn't make it up. It's actually there. So that's what he found very interesting. Like, this is actually real. What if we did a story about this and then we could exaggerate it a bit? But another thing that inspired him, a friend of his almost got kidnapped a few years ago. And she had to jump off the bridge to escape the kidnappers and swim to safety. So that's what inspires the opening scene in Iwájú, where you see someone on the bridge about to get kidnapped. So it's just these different ideas already floating around in his head. So once we got the opportunity to pitch to Disney Animation, it's like, oh, this might be an opportunity for me to explore these ideas I've been thinking of. So we just put them together.
Wow. Wow. Governor, I know you were going to add to that.
Um, I wanted Tolu to comment on that because they are the custodian of the stories and they basically came up with the world. We were just like instruments for realizing their
I
vision.
think if you want to take advantage of Godwin and Bimpe's presence, try to focus more on, like, for Godwin, more on the visuals and the visual design, and for Bimpe, well, she played two roles: cultural consultant
Yeah.
and costume designer. So I would say you can focus on those areas because they can give insights that I can't give there.
No, for sure. Because I even wanted to bring that up. Like, you know, because we've never seen this representation on the screen when it comes to the visuals of the clothing or just again the houses. Um, and I know this stemmed from what you saw around, but why was it important that you didn't mimic anything else you already saw? Right? Like this is Nigerian culture that we're seeing on screen. This is African culture. But sometimes we might find that, oh, we see that this kind of animation performs already very well with audiences. Let's copy this or let's do something like that. For you, Bimpe, for you, Godwin, like the visual storytelling aspect of it all, why was it important to stay true to the culture and not try to adhere to what we already see in animation?
Okay.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
I
So
mean, okay, you were going to talk.
you
Okay.
started already.
So so I think from the get-go, since the co-founders, they really wanted the story to be authentically Nigerian.
Mm,
Africa is not a country. You know, even though there are many people that are not Nigerians, they could still relate to it. So, and as Tolu said in the documentary, that people will come for him and tell him he had just one job.
mhm,
So now, even though Nigeria, we are citizens of the world. Like on a normal day, you're not going to see someone like Bode walking on the street. Or if you see him, you know that that person is doing that to call attention. But you will see somebody looking like Tunde. You will see somebody looking like Kole. You will see somebody looking like Tola. So they wanted the whole look and feel was, even though it is Lagos in the future, let it also be relatable. Because many times when we think of science fiction, and I know Ziki said from get-go, like he didn't want that. You know, at times they could look like this Wizard of Oz, like maybe people in wearing metallic kind of plates, outfits and all. But this year, God willing, I am 50.
wow.
So when I was one, the agbada my father was wearing, 50 years down the line, they're still wearing it. So as he said, some things change, some things stay the same. So some things in our culture, in the environment, they will never change, even if it is in the future.
Mm,
So like now, like the futuristic elements, I want some of them. Well, we hope there won't be traffic in the future because um, it's someone's imagined story. But there's just something with Lagos because even back in the day, this traffic thing has always been a problem in Lagos. There was a time that there was park and ride, odd number, even number. Because I remember when my father would come to Lagos when we were children, he would carry my mother's car because it has a different plate number, it's an odd number. Then another time he would carry even number. This was in the 70s, 80s. We are still in traffic. So there's some technology in Iwájú that I hope we can even have now. Like
mhm.
the Tola's robots and all. Please clean my shoe, make my puff puff. The VR or is it AR that you can use to call? Well, that is already kind of happening. But us being able to go in the air, please, by all means, if we can buy that car. So it was many people could really like relate to the fact that okay, it's in the future, but it's also very relatable and very now. So that was something that the co-founders really wanted to be in the show, very authentic. So I don't know if that answers the
It
question
does.
from my end.
It
Yeah.
does.
Thank you, it does.
Yeah.
Godwin, you wanted to
Okay.
add that.
Yeah, I can also talk to that. Personally, for me, I value the idea of having soul in a design,
Mm,
right? And you can't get soul without having some form of authenticity, right? It's a people story. It needs to feel and look like it belongs to a group of people, right?
mm,
And in this case, Iwájú was focused on the people of Lagos. We could have taken this story any other place in Nigeria. I mean, we have so many other states. Lagos is not the only state, but Lagos was chosen And it was important that we stay true to the culture of these people because we wanted people to kind of relate and feel what Lagos is like. You could be staying outside of Lagos, but once you watch the film, I mean the series, you feel a certain experience about this place that you've never been in. And those are some of the reasons why it was important to include as many cultural innuendos as possible or subtleties as possible. So, I mean, because we get to work on a million other projects, right? This is the one opportunity you have to actually showcase as much as you can about your culture. But if you don't do it now, when are you going to
Yeah.
do it? So this was like a big opportunity that we felt we needed to put everything, everything. A lot of people were like, oh, it doesn't make sense. How can you still have traffic in the future? We don't care. It's what's obtainable now. That's
Yeah.
what people relate to it, right? So we needed to include that. People would be like, oh no, you have futuristic hawkers carrying stuffs on their head, trying to, higher levels just to sell products. It's unrealistic, makes no sense. We know it doesn't make sense, but we feel it represents the spirit of Lagos. Because when you come to Lagos, one of the things that would hit you that you would never forget is the drive for people to
Yeah.
survive. That constant push. Everybody's struggling. There's that energy that everybody puts into what they do. And one of the places where you see a lot of that is in the marketplace. Everybody is so eager to make sales. So if it means taking their product all the way into the sky to sell to you, that's what they are going to do, right? Does it make sense? No, it doesn't. But it would happen if that technology was available. And we needed to include all of those aspects. So people who watch it who maybe don't know why these things are there, that's why it's nice we have this kind of conversation because it helps people to see that. So there is a culture that is being conveyed through all of these design ideas, right? It's
Yeah.
not just we're not just trying to be futuristic for futuristic sake. We're
Yeah.
trying to build a certain aspects of humanity into the story, into the design, so that it feels like home.
Yeah.
So for people who know and recognize it, it will hit hard. And then for people who don't know, they would start to learn and say, "Oh, cool, that's actually interesting."
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that inspire me personally as an artist, and I'm glad that I was able to, import some of those ideas into the show.
Yeah. What I love what you said was showcasing humanity so people know that this is still home, right? There are things that are still going to be consistent. No matter how advanced technology gets, there are people who are still going to be hustling. People who are still going to have drive. People who are still going to try their best every single day selling things on the streets. And so having that consistency, even with them flying in the air selling stuff, is still homage and, demonstrating the culture that exists that we know. And
Mhm.
I think that was very helpful in also getting the story across, right? Like, this is a story for us.
Yeah.
This is a story that we don't get to see often, but we're showcasing your story, your lives on the screen, and we're not going to shy away from it because it deserves to be told. And so, from those ideas stemming from what you all saw growing up, what we see on the screens, like, I think that's so important because if you don't tell the story, if you don't give people representation, then who will, right?
Mhm.
So I just am in awe from this conversation about the intention to detail, the journey that it took from idea to pen to screen. Like, it shows, and I want to again say thank you all because this is a story that I think a lot of people, when they were younger, would have loved to appreciate. And I'm so happy that the upcoming people from Nigeria, from Africa, from just who wants to see the culture being told on the screen gets that chance. And so I want to ask you all, if younger you were to see Iwájú now, what do you think would be the feeling that you had inside seeing Iwájú on screen?
I wish it happened when I was younger.
Mm,
But personally, for me, the joy of seeing a representation of myself on screen is um, is unmatchable, really,
yeah,
because for so long we've been so exposed to the media has, it showcases other cultures, but there is such a limited focus on, the Black culture, and having that representation brings so much joy, even now for me as an adult. So I don't know if kids would care that much, right? Because when I was a kid, I don't think I thought so much about it because, we just wanted to be entertained. But being an adult now, seeing what could be, I feel it's priceless. Really, it's priceless. Everybody deserves some form of representation, and this is a big opportunity, and people's voices need to be heard. So I'm just glad it's happening.
Well, I think I would have really been very happy because growing up on cartoons from Hanna-Barbera, watching Spider-Man, Superman, and all, and these are things from abroad we are seeing here. So me seeing people who look like me, talk like me, they're speaking English, they're speaking Yoruba, they're speaking free and Pidgin, I can see and relate to things. I would have really been overjoyed, I think, and it will make me, like dream, be able to enter like another world, as it were, because even though this year is 30 years, we've loved a lot of Disney productions, but many of us, and I'm sure I don't speak for only me, Lion King especially endeared us to Walt Disney animation. Now they were speaking with American accents, it's animals, but we all still loved Lion King. So that that connection, the way it starts with the Swahili chant or whatever. So I think, when I was checking things online, many people were like, my inner child is healed. That I would have loved to see this, like as a child. I'm very happy for and envious of children now because they wouldn't know what it is not to have seen this thing. Because for some time now, there's been a lot in representation. Like people from Polynesia, they could see Moana. People from the Philippines and like all that side, they could see Raya. People from Colombia, they could see Encanto. The Sami people, well, they saw Frozen. Africa, what is our own? So this many people could connect to. In fact, many people were saying they wished it was a film that would dress up and go to the cinema. And if you notice, many people keep saying, oh, this film, like they have to catch themselves to remember that it is a series, especially if you binge watch, because everything is made up. Like if you watch one after the other, it's like 2 hours. So it was really amazing. I'm happy I saw it now, but my joy is the fact that I worked on this groundbreaking project. I would have loved to see it as a child, but well, reality, I'm an adult, but I'm happy that children can see it.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if myself as a kid, I consumed everything. I'm what you would call an omnivore. So as long as it's good quality, I'm into it. Like I was reading Animorphs, watching Dragon Ball Z, watching, Marvel, DC, playing video games, reading Black Beauty and Gulliver's Travels. So I don't think, as a child, I wasn't even aware of race. Like it wouldn't have hit me from a point of representation as a child, but I would definitely have enjoyed it for the quality because, like I said in the documentary, I want the work I do to be appreciated for its quality and not because I don't want people to be like, oh, let's support him, he's our brother, but then my work is not actually good. So because the things that make me start doing what I'm doing, they are masterpieces. The Legend of Zelda video game series, the Dragon Ball anime series. Like these things are masterpieces. Yeah. So, and those are the things that inspired me. I still read Animorphs still now because it's 54 books, and as a kid I read them scattered. So as an adult now I have all 54 books, and I've started reading each book one by one. I think I'm around book 15, 16 now. So if the quality is good, it will remain good. It was good when I was a kid, it's still good now. So for me, that's always the most important thing.
Wow. And I loved that you all shared that because even me, like watching that, I actually cried at some points because it was from the dialects. It was from even seeing them when it was Kole and Sola and eating food and like drawing the stew. I'm like, wow. Like before, when I was younger, I'd be like, I never saw anybody eat like that, so I didn't know people used to use their hands and draw the stew. But seeing that, I know for a child, know that they come from a home where they eat amala and they eat okra stew and rest of it. Just seeing that is important, and like you mentioned, like this is just the beginning. It's a series, but this is the beginning in African storytelling. Just because you have one doesn't mean that's enough. There's so many different stories, even in Nigeria, even in Africa, the continent, even in the country of Nigeria. Like, there's so many different stories that deserve to be told and shared and shed a light on. And I think with Iwájú being a pioneer in the first animated African series, this is something that I think we have a lot more to expect. We have a lot more to see from this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would say,
for
I
me.
know there have Sorry, I know there have been other animated movies and series from
Mm-hmm.
Africa. It's just that because there isn't a lot of funding, so the ones that have existed before us haven't gotten to a global audience.
Yeah.
We are the first to have to work with the kind of funding that AAA studios work
Mm-hmm.
with, which is why Waju has been translated into so many languages, and people in Korea, India, Germany, they're watching it in their own local
Mm-hmm.
language. So it's getting to places where stories from Africa have not gotten to before.
Mm-hmm.
So I say this because I don't want to erase the work of the people who didn't have the opportunity I had. People have made animated series and animated movies from Africa, and they've been doing it for about 20 years
Yeah.
now. So there's stuff out there if you're looking for it. We're just fortunate to be the first to do it at a global scale,
Yeah.
and obviously it won't last. I mean, Godwin is literally working on another one as we speak.
Oh, well, that's exciting. I
Yeah,
love that you
different
pointed that out.
company, different show.
Friend
So I would.
conversation, Tolu.
I'll say people should go to Godwin's social media to find more details. I don't want to take, let me say, Iwájú PR time to talk about other shows. That's why I've deliberately not named names, but I want people to know that other people are out there doing
Yeah.
things. And we were fortunate to be the first to do it at this scale,
Mm-hmm.
but we won't be the last.
Yeah.
People will keep doing it. We will do more ourselves.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that because it's very true. There's so many stories that we haven't seen on the big screen. We haven't seen them get the support of a Disney, but that doesn't mean the story hasn't been told already. That doesn't mean the story doesn't exist. And so continuing to support, continuing to use our voices and saying we want to see more of this on our screens is so important. And championing these stories is important for us to get that representation that we want. And we kind of went into it already, but my last question is what can we expect next from everybody? What can we see next coming from your brains to the pens, the paper, to the screen?
Who wants to go first?
Okay, I can go. Well, I am secretly and openly. I even saw some people putting in the comments a continuation of Iwájú. So, of course, even though it said limited series, um, someone entered my DM saying, "Oh, he's a voice actor." This, and I'm like, I'm neither Kugali nor Disney. Oh. Shoot your shot. Then even it's a limited series, so that I don't know if it's going to continue. He said that there are limited series that continue. So I'm hoping that that happens. But on the personal side, I am working on some private projects. Some private projects. One of which I have done a proof of concept myself, like a short film, 2017. So I'm hoping to get it to either a series or a feature level, in addition to some other projects I am I'm working on. So that's me personally. Godwin was even involved in this my project at some point. So he was not a stranger being working with him again on the Iwájú team. Godwin,
Um,
you.
so So for me, I mean, like I was kind of confusing those names, Iwájú and Iyanu. So Iyanu is actually something that's happening right now, and it's one of the projects I'm working on, and it's also based on like Yoruba culture, which is in Nigeria as well. So that is super exciting for me, coming from working with Disney Animation in Waju, and then I'm working with like HBO and Cartoon Network on Iyanu. It's really an eye opener because now it shows that the world is ready for African content, right? There's a huge demand. Everybody wants to see more. So it's just the tip of the iceberg. We're just getting started. There's just so much more that's going to be coming from this continent, from this country, and I'm happy to even be part of this groundbreaking event that's happening. So that alone is really encouraging to see.
Amazing.
So on the Kugali side, there are a couple of projects we have that I cannot announce yet until the time is right.
Mm-hmm.
So because I can't announce those yet, what I will say is the one that was announced a few months ago. It's called Kugali Inc. It's a publishing imprint in collaboration with Disney Publishing Worldwide. So Kugali makes graphic novels and comics, right? We've been doing that for a while. But with DPW, that's Disney Publishing Worldwide, our imprint, Kugali Inc., will create graphic novels specifically for the middle grade audience in North America. So the first two books have already been announced. One is called Roomless. It's a fantasy story by one of our team members, Bill Masuku, who also worked as a storyboard artist on Iwájú. And Bill is from Zimbabwe. So Roomless is a Zimbabwean fantasy story. And then the second one is Akani, which is a science fiction story set in outer space. So the writer is Jessica Tagbajumi, who is Nigerian. But because the story is set in outer space, it's not very Nigerian so much as it's just, science fiction with African, let me say, different African cultures in it. And these are the two I can talk about for now.
Wow.
I will say we are actually looking for more artists to work with. So if you're an artist and you want to work with us, you can shoot your shot. Go to kugali.com. There's a working with us section on our website. There's a form you can fill in your details. Just leave your artist portfolio in there. We might contact you.
Okay. If you guys heard that, go to Kugali's, that's Instagram, and make sure you fill out if you're an artist. That sounds like an amazing opportunity. Bimpe, Godwin, Tolu, this was an amazing conversation. I think just hearing this conversation and hearing you all talk about Iwájú and the work that you do, it's exciting and it's so good for the future. And I'm gonna go watch Iwájú again after this because all the little gems, the hints, the subtle details that I got from this conversation, I realized I enjoyed the story, but I'm going to enjoy it even more now rewatching it after this. I really want to say thank you again. My name is Adeola. I'm your Naija Comm host for this conversation, and I'm just thankful so much for this opportunity. And I see the cat playing there, but this was amazing, and I hope you all have a great day. Make sure you follow their socials and watch Iwájú. Tune in, tune in. But
Yeah,
thank you
thank
all
Thanks so
so
you so
much.
much.
much,
It
everyone.
was fun.
It's been
It
great.
Bye.
was
Peace.
Bye,
it was a
guys.
nice one. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.